Well, greetings and good evening. It's the 25th of June. It's 9:15, just gone. I'm sat on my favourite bench. It's all gone still. It's a bit changeable today, but no rain. It got hot, a bit breezy. Got hot, got breezy. And just Widget the cow just walking by, looking at me thinking, Krish, do we get bananas? Seriously, I was just looking at me thinking, I bet he's got some food for me. And I just checked tonight, and the baby owls are putting their heads out of the nesting box, so that's quite exciting to think that they could be fledgling soon. I feel like a nervous parent because I'm thinking, what happens if they fall on the floor? But we'll sort that out tomorrow with Claire, who'll be down, and she's as passionate about the owl as myself. Oh, we now have Angus stop and look at me thinking, he must have some food somewhere. Oh, Sirius has got some food. He's up in the tank. Yeah, last night I talked about the owl and how that sort of really, it's quite emotional really, this sort of journey with the barn owl. And as a child, wanted to see a barn owl, and then my dad constantly saying, right boy, get some pictures of it. And sadly, it was a time when he died that I managed to get some decent pictures. And now, well, I can only imagine my dad would be so super excited. I see a barn owl flying around, and not only just flying around, but actually tame enough to come to me and sit behind me and watch what I'm doing. So there's some lovely gifts out there. And it got me thinking about birds and my connection. And it's difficult, isn't it? I think the passage of time, things fade, or you don't quite understand that fade. It's there, but you can't put a time on it. When did I get that interested in birds to want to have an owl? I got a parrot called Poppy, a little budgie. There's some sheep just running by me, pounding along as if they had to go to a very important date. Probably going to find the best place to sleep. So yeah, sort of looking back, I remember on the farm we had chickens, and I wasn't overly keen on chickens, and probably still not, even though we do have ones that's come along like Ken the rooster and Ben the rooster, and ones that obviously you do get attached to. But on the farm, they were just there for eggs. And my dad was constantly fighting the foxes. And we had quite a few, and we had nesting boxes. And I always remember going back with the chickens. We had the birds in a cow shed. It was no longer used for a cow shed, but anyway, that's another story. And I remember having those boxes in there for the eggs, to lay the eggs. And every now and again, my dad would go in there and he would block up all the holes, bring in his Jack Russells and collie, and move the egg boxes. Underneath, there was rats. And I think I'll not say I'm not scared of rats, but I wasn't, in my early days, I sort of overcome that fear. I'm not really afraid of any animal now. But I always remember going in there, and these rats would come out, and they sort of obviously running for their lives. And I remember one rat ran at me, as a young child. It was like, oh my goodness. And it was very surreal seeing all this. Now, we're quite lucky now that we have cats and Oreo who keeps under control of them. And probably the owl gets a few little mice and rats. So yeah, chickens were part of the farm. I can't remember. We had cockerels one year for Christmas. I'm not going to go into that, and I'm not going to go tell you the story about my dad, who and I remember our roosters were always aggressive. Ours aren't here. We only had a couple, Bomber and a couple other ones that showed signs of aggression, but ours was aggressive. And I always remember if one actually went for me or for my dad, that was the end of it. And Dad would dispatch it quite swiftly in front of me. And I got scared of the headless chicken. Anyway, we're going to move on because that's not where I was going to go with this podcast. It was a passion about all animals. But I used to rescue birds. And I can't put dates and times on it, who was the first. Probably a little budgie that we had in the house called Freddie. He had a disease. He didn't have fully developed wings, but he was a friendly little one. And we had Joey. So we had a few budgies. Here comes Squirrel. No, that's my drink. Squirrel just is a little lamb who decided that the drink I brought out here is now his, or hers, shall we say. So I mentioned budgies, but I would have sort of birds that I picked and found, and I would rescue them. My dad was always not keen on this. He said, let nature do what it does. If it's meant to survive, it will survive. It's very difficult when you've got a passion for animals. I understood where he's coming from, because we still get it now where people will bring in a young bird which is falling out of a nest and expect us to sort of look after it and bring it on. There are some good wildlife rescue centres around, so we work with them where we can. So lots of rescue animals. And I also remember, which is again not the best of memories, my friends used to come down the farm and they used to go hunting for bird eggs. Yeah, people used to collect bird eggs, and they probably still do, but it's not legal. It might have been legal then. And I always remember them saying, oh yeah, if you just take one egg out of the nest, it won't be a problem, and they'll lay another egg. Where in reality, my experience now is that if you interfere with a bird's nest, it will probably desert the whole lot. But that's what people did. And there seemed to be more birds about then. Cue the peacock in the distance saying, yeah, we're here. So there's a more wider variety of birds, and the hedges were full of nests, and you would see them all round. I think the sort of numbers are picking up around here because we do not obviously cut our hedges. We let them grow naturally, so there's good cover for them, and then plenty of food for them. So it sort of started, I suppose, early teens, and somehow I came across some budgies. And, as my dad didn't pay pocket money, and I used to do work on the farm, but he let me have space. So I built some aviaries, and I think my dad helped on quite a few of them, because I think he quite enjoyed the birds, really, even though he didn't want to show it. So I had budgies, and then canaries and finches, all sorts of birds, even a wider bird. You look at the wider, they're beautiful. And moving on, I had pheasants, pigeons. I love pigeons. We had the pigeons like an archangel, which is a beautiful bird, and tumblers, which would fly up in the air and tumble down. Why? They were sort of bred like that, but why did they breed them like it? So my interest in birds sort of developed quite quickly, and I, as always, do it to extreme. I think I ended up with about 500 budgies, and I was selling budgies to shops in London for 50p each. If I knew now if I knew now and could go back to my younger self, I wouldn't have done it, because I assumed that everybody looked after animals like I did. So every budgie would have the best life. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in quite a few cases then, and probably still now. People have it on a whim and think, oh, I want a budgie. And when that budgie becomes annoying and such that it doesn't tame down because the person has no idea how to interact with a bird, or they teach it to swear and they get fed up with it, then it's like, oh, I don't want a budgie anymore, I want a canary, or I want a parrot, or whatever. But I did all this in innocent. I was only my 12, 13, 14, I think through to 15. And I had lovebirds. And I actually found a place called Wootton Rivers that used to import birds. Again, I look back and thinking it was so wrong. And these birds would come in from various parts of the world and be sold. And of course they were trapped, weren't they? And I remember I had a mynah bird called Jasper, which I could I'd do a whole podcast on Jasper, my mynah bird. But they used to come in to the country as gapers. But basically they were young mynah birds that had been taken out of the nest, put into a box and flew hundreds of miles to come to a place like this. And then people would get hold of them, and then you would feed them on basically fruit. They love fruit, mainly bananas, and they would become very tame. I did that a little bit, and I conscious kicked in and thought, these birds should be in a nest in the country, not brought into this country. It's changed a lot now, and people now breed birds in captivity. They don't import them in. Well, I hope they don't. So yes, Jasper, my mynah bird, who used to have a good conversation with myself, and anybody who turned up, if you knocked on the door, he goes, "Hello," and who is it? I remember one time we were out for the day, and our neighbour, Mary Hawkins, a farmer's wife, came down, and she'd come to the door, and it was, "Hello, who is it?" "Mary." "Who is it?" And they said a few other things. I never ever taught my birds to swear, but it was very cheeky. Quite often say, "Merry Christmas," in the middle of June. And then the voice obviously mimicked me. And she got really upset. Anyway, later on that night, she rang up my dad and said, "Christopher was so rude to me. I turned up and he was being cheeky to me." She didn't believe it was a mynah bird, so she had to come over eventually to see, because no, I wouldn't have done that. I was probably just hid from her and not said anything. But anyway, that is certainly another story. So yeah, Jasper was one of my favourite birds, and it sort of grew and grew. Maybe the thought of breeding them and selling them declined the more I heard about people who couldn't really look after them. But I've always had birds there or thereabouts. And I love watching for birds, and I've been lucky to go to Africa to see the variety of birds over there. And when I was going over to this place in Wootton Rivers, I think my dad went occasionally, and I said before, my dad loved this because he was quite taken away with the animal birds as well. And we had some amazing finches, spice finches, and cordon bleus, is that the right one? Zebra finches. Oh, the list goes on. Amazing colours. But I spent a lot of time with them. They were very, very tame. I must tell you about the time I had a nightmare, and I still get that nightmare, all because of my birds. It's the only nightmare I really have at the moment, or have had. I'll tell you that in a moment. So a lot of birds were there, and we were going over there, and this bloke used to have these macaws, which again were brought in from South America, and I think they're about £30 each for a blue and gold macaw. And I think a hyacinth, which is the most amazing blue macaw, which I just love, was £50. And I wanted to buy one, and my dad wouldn't let me do it. Even though it was my own money, he said, "Oh no, it lived too long." Have you ever said, anybody who said, "Don't get an animal because it lives too long"? I thought that was the reason for getting an animal that lived long, because you have a companion for a life. I was young then, so I'm sure I would have lived as long as the macaw. So I never got one, or a parrot. I did have an Amazon, green Amazon, the rescue one, called Jake. But my dad had to get rid of it because it bit him. If you prod it, it's going to bite you. He thinks everything can be instantly tame. It takes time. And I remember my mum had used to cockatiels. Yeah, we had lots of cockatiels. I used to breed those. And mum had one called Mindy. He was quite a nice pet, to be honest. And I got some footage somewhere around where Mindy would jump on the back of our little Jack Russell called Daisy and have a ride. And I filmed that back in the day. That must be about 30, 40 years ago. But yeah, so there's a lot of connection with birds. And I will confess, I'm not bad. I don't think it's Mischief. I think it's my middle name. My sister, who's older than myself, Linda Jane, she was a lot older than me. I keep reminding her now. But there was a bit of an age difference. So when she was sort of 17, 18, I was probably about 11. And she used to bring her friends down, and because they used to tease me. And I always find it very difficult around girls, and especially in my early days, and probably even now, it's always a bit difficult. I always find my face going a lot more red and not being able to get my words out in the right order. So anyway, my sister used to tease me, and there's nothing wrong with that. But she annoyed me one night. But I had my mynah bird trained that if I pointed to something, it would fly to it and attack. Yeah, I did say the word attack. So my sister came in one night, and anyway, I sent the mynah bird after, Jasper, landed on her shoulder and started pecking on her ear, which is painful. And she was flapping about, and the bird was flapping about, and she was getting upset. The bird was singing, "Oh, this is fun. Someone wants to play games." And from that day onwards, she's been pretty scared of birds and their feathers. Don't see much of her at the farm. Feel guilty in some ways, but no. I shouldn't have done it, but she shouldn't have teased me. Yeah, so good old Jasper. So many sort of lovely birds. Yeah, and I think even now with Poppy the parrot, I was 65 and I wanted something a bit special. I got most things I really want because of my animals around here. And my daughter, Cara, bless her, she said, "Dad, why don't you get a parrot?" And I said, "Oh, I would love to, but the parrot's going to outlive me. You know, it's going to live to 50, 60, 70 years." And so she said, "Well, don't worry, we'll look after it when we need to." And Casey said he would as well. He quite often reminds me, though, young and innocent they are. Casey said, "Grampy, when you're gone, I'm going to look after your parrot." "Thank you, Casey. It's going to be a little while yet." Bless him. So, yeah, it was something that I always wanted. And I love a Poppy. He's such a good companion. He's very talkative, as some of you might have heard. He's got a good vocabulary. And he can mimic all the animals, which has confused me sometimes, where you can hear a little gosling or a little lamb or goat. Very good at mimicking. And very good... And very good companions. That was it. So what was I going to talk about? Have I forgot what I was going to talk about? Have I just lost the plot a little bit? Maybe I have to listen to this again to find out where I was going to go with some of my stories about birds. So I think they'll always be part of me. And then Casey, my grandson, likes them. And my other daughter, Sally Ann, she's not so keen on animals. But her son, Jack, is. And he loves penguins. We went over to Cotswold Wildlife Park last year and we spent time with penguins, or he did. He loved it. So, yes, why have we got this fascination with birds? Yeah, I completely forgot where I was going to go with that memory. But, I've had some amazing rescues. You might have seen recently I had to go to my old school, St. Peter's, and rescue a peacock. We rescued quite a few peacocks over the time. And I remember being called one day, said, "Oh, Chris, could you help?" This is the RSPCA. We got a swan that is trapped at the church in Devizes, St. John's. Could you help? So Chris Greenwood came down, and I think, I can't remember, one of my students came with me, and there was a swan in the churchyard. There's not enough room for it to take off. It couldn't go onto the busy road. So I went up to it, and someone said, "Are you trained in rescuing swans?" I said, "No." "Are you afraid it's going to break your arm?" Because everybody thinks a swan's going to flap its wing and break your arm, which is not the case. So I walked up to it. It hissed at me. I grabbed it by the neck, because that's what you have to do. And it is very strong in the neck. So you're not going to hurt it. You're not going to squeeze it and hurt it. So I could restrain it from pecking at me. I then grabbed its wing, tucked the wings in, picked it up, wrapped it in a blanket, and put it into the back of a car for Chris to drive over to our local crammer. And I released it, only for it to be attacked by all the other swans on there. So I had to rescue it again, and we brought it down to the bottom of the canal to where I live and put it on the canal pound, and it was happy there. So yeah, one of the many rescue animals we got. Right, well, Sirius is still feeding. I've just got to go and have myself a drink and just think, all those memories of birds. It is interesting why so many people... I'll finish off. I think there's a bit of romance. I've got to bring a bit of romance into my stories now and again. And as I said, I was very nervous around girls. I never really was popular with the girls, I suppose, mainly because of my passion for animals, and I didn't really mix that well, because all I was interested in was getting back on the farm or rescuing animals. So they probably think I was a bit strange. I never mixed with the boys as such at school and played football, because I had the same energy to work. But I joined Devise's Bird Cage and Aviary club. I think that's what it was called. And they used to have talks, and a lot of people would come along with their exotic birds. The people who seem to have a fair bit of money, should we say, and have exotic birds where they brought in. And we used to have little shows, so I was in the juniors or whatever class. I was obviously in a younger class than to the adults, but my birds were probably as good, if not better, than most. My budgies, and so I won prizes for my budgies, my canaries, my lovebirds, and my parakeets. And one time we went up to Alexandra Palace. I think it was Alexandra Palace. They had a big bird show up there, a national one. And I was encouraged to go up there with some of my birds. And we had a coach we went on there. And we went on there, but there's a young girl on there. I just trying to think of her name now. It's there somewhere. But was it Fatima? Anyway, it was a lovely... And we sort of got chatting and one thing and another, and we sat together on the coach and talked about birds. And I won some prizes. I think I got a first, a second and a third. I got a couple of firsts, I think. I think I still got the rosettes and certificates then. And I was up against some well-established bird collectors. So I was very, very pleased. Anyway, on the way back, the girl came and sat next to me again, chatting, said, "I got you a present." And my face went bright red. Oh my goodness, the first present from a girl? Well, what does that mean? Does it mean we're going to get married? We're in love? But no, she bought me this lovely, and it was a pendant, what do you call it? Yeah, it was of a Libra. I think I still got it somewhere. You put it around your neck, and it was a Libra because I'm born in October, of the scales. I was sort of nearly speechless. And yes, I think she she fancied me, and I think probably wanted to go out with me, but I went into that going out with girls at that time. I had birds, the feathered sort, so why would I want to go out? But yeah, it was such a lovely there, and I think she was quite embarrassed because maybe I didn't react quite as she probably expected. And I've seen her over the years, still around, and still as lovely as always. It wasn't our time, shall we say. My birds came first. So my first sort of experience of romance, I wouldn't say love, I wouldn't say romance, but boy meets girl, girl give boy present, boy just wants budgies. So that's a happy memory there. Well, I'm going to say goodnight because I've been going on for far too long. Maybe done the birds, maybe we do the bees tomorrow. But for me, and my lambs and my owl, Sirius, and my Alfie just flying by me, thank you for listening. And yes, tomorrow we will bring you another story. Squirrel, leave my cup alone. Night-night, or good morning, good afternoon.